Once upon a time, Meghan Markle's story felt like something out of a Hollywood movie. A young woman from California, actress turned Duchess, walking into a centuries-old institution with style, ambition, and a global spotlight, following her every move. But fairy tales don't last forever, and some fall apart faster than others' eye.
I was such a fraud.
What started as a story of hope has become something closer to a warning. Label, be careful what you chase, because it might just expose everything you were trying to hide. The shift didn't happen overnight. At first, Meghan had the world leaning, and she brought something new to the royal family, a fresh face, an American sensibility, and a charm that seemed unstoppable. But behind the glamour and magazine covers, cracks were forming. The problem, Meghan wasn't just trying to modernize a monarchy, she was trying to rebrand it in her own image, and the palace wasn't having it. Critics like Piers Morgan and Tom Bauer didn't just disagree with Meghan, they went after her with full force. The Meghan wasn't misunderstood, she was calculated.
Nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what she just said is complete and utter garbage.
One moment she was waving on the palace balcony, the next she was on Netflix recounting how cruel that life really was. And then came the podcast, the children's book, the skincare line, the jam jars. Suddenly the Duchess had become a brand, but not just any brand, one that felt oddly hollow. Her lifestyle label, once hyped as a reinvention of royal grace, started off with overpriced oils and fruit preserves. That's right, jam, and people noticed. The same woman who stood beside the Queen now promotes Mason jars on Instagram like a startup influencer. For some, it was amusing. For others, it was embarrassing. The British public, known for their brutal honesty, didn't mince words. They saw it as a fall from grace. One newspaper joked, Meghan went from Duchess to drop shipper in pearls. Tom Bauer, ever the thorn in Meghan's side, put it bluntly, she's a one-trick pony who used a royal name and then threw it away.
I think Diana, we all know Diana would be shocked that we're sitting here today discussing her son as an outright liar.
It wasn't just harsh, it stung because it echoed what many already felt inside palace walls. The relief was almost palpable. Staff who once walked on eggshells reportedly felt the tension lift after Meghan and Harry stepped down. Royal engagements became less like press shows and more like, well, duty again. And that's the difference, really. Meghan wanted the title, but not the traditions of fame, but not the formalities. Piers Morgan didn't hold back. Either he accused Meghan of crafting an identity built on victimhood, always painting herself as the wrong party while cashing in on the narrative.
It's one long rendition of all their greatest whinges and a load of self-congratulatory nonsense. Harry and Meghan sold their royal souls to become reality TV stars.
She doesn't want privacy. He said she wants control. That sentiment stuck. Her Spotify deal hyped and teased fell flat. Archetypes or podcasts sounded more like a soliloquy than a conversation. And just like that, the platform dropped her. No hard feelings, just hard business. And the red flags didn't stop there. Meghan's tendency to take center stage at every turn started rubbing people the wrong way. There were stories of her clashing with royal staff, of her dictating image approval for a Vogue shoot, even of her being too controlling during collaborative projects. The image was starting to shift from misunderstood princess to PR-obsessed diva. Meanwhile, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, didn't have to say a word. She simply showed up, did her job, and let her dignity speak for itself. Meghan's critics didn't even have to try hard. The contrast was glaring. One side drew headlines with elegance, the other screamed for them. The real turning point came when even Hollywood started backing away. For someone who always dreamed of red carpets and exclusive circles, it must have been jarring. Meghan had spent years chasing relevance, but it seemed the very people who once toasted her were quietly ghosting her. It wasn't public, it wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet freeze-out invitation. Stopped coming to listers who once clapped for her projects, now avoided association altogether in a town where image is everything. The Sussex brand had become complicated. It didn't help that every venture post-royalty felt like a misfire. The Netflix documentary, pitched as a raw behind-the-scenes look into their lives, ended up feeling overproduced and strangely hollow. Instead of pulling people in, it pushed many away. There were tears, yes, but there were also questions fact-checkers flagged, moments critics called performative. Viewers didn't walk away with new insight. They walked away feeling manipulated. Then came archetypes or podcast. The concept sounded promising, exploring female stereotypes through Meghan's lens, but listeners quickly realized the show wasn't really about the guests. It was about Meghan. Every topic somehow curved back to her struggles, her feelings, her experiences. Even when powerful women showed up to speak, their voices were often drowned out by the Duchess's own carefully crafted narrative. When Spotify pulled the plug after one season, it wasn't a shock. It was a relief. Behind the glossy launches and headline-grabbing appearances, the cracks in Meghan's strategy became impossible to ignore. Each new project felt like a repackaging of the same story. Royal escapee turned freedom fighter woman of color, silenced by a cold institution, victim of press cruelty, misunderstood icon. The problem: audiences were tired of the same pitch. The emotional appeal that once drew sympathy now felt like a rerun, and sympathy, like fame, has an expiration date. Back in Britain, the monarchy was doing just fine without her. King Charles leaned into legacy building. Prince William took on more responsibility with poise, and Catherine, unbothered by the noise, continued her quiet ascent into global admiration. They weren't pushing products, they weren't launching brands, they were doing the job. And that contrast became the sharpest thorn in Meghan's side. While Meghan posed with jam jars and released moody black and white portraits of self-faced oil, Catherine made headlines simply by showing up. No PR stunt needed. Her influence wasn't about volume, it was about presence. When she missed the royal ascot this year, the media still covered her absence. Meghan, on the other hand, had to chase relevance without controversy or a camera crew. She disappeared from the conversation. And then there was Thomas Markle, her father, who raised her alone for years, suffered a stroke, and reportedly hasn't heard from her since. The man who once lit movie sets so his daughter could follow her dreams now sits in silence, ghosted by the very person he sacrificed for critics. It added another layer to the story: a woman who preaches compassion, yet burns bridges closest to her inside the palace. It's been said that Queen Elizabeth never wanted Meghan at Prince Philip's funeral, not because of scandal, but because she knew exactly what would happen. Meghan's presence would shift the spotlight. Even at a funeral, it would become about her. That's what royal insiders feared most: not drama, but distraction. And in an institution built on stability, that's the ultimate betrayal. At the heart of all, Meghan's biggest obstacle might just be herself, not the press, not the palace, not even the royal protocols. She claimed to loathe. It's the pattern: announce something big, stir up attention, banish without delivering, whether it was her children's book or production company's grand plans, or the whisper of another memoir. The pattern stayed the same: loud beginnings, quiet endings, hype without substance. The strategy might work once, maybe even twice, but in the long run, people remember what lasts, not the Instagram stories, not the flashy PR launches, just the results. And for Meghan, those results have been underwhelming. Critics aren't calling her out just for the sake of controversy. They're noticing a consistent trail of unfinished business and questionable priorities. She's not being dragged for being bold. She's being questioned for being hollow. Even supporters who once fiercely defended her started to take a step back. Some say it's fatigue, others say it's clarity. The endless drama, the carefully curated victim narratives, the high-production interviews where Meghan always seems just on the verge of tears. It's all starting to blur. At some point, the audience stopped relating. They started eye-rolling. And in the middle of this is Prince Harry, once the cheeky, beloved royal rebel. He now looks like a man stuck in the passenger seat. His own life friends from his past have distanced themselves. Sometime allies in the UK have gone silent. Even his recent solo appearances feel strained, like a man split between two worlds and fully accepted by neither. His once relatable charm now buried under layers of strained PR smiles. Meanwhile, the brand they built together, the so-called Sussex empire, is faltering. It's not collapsing in a dramatic fireball, but slowly, quietly fading into irrelevant. In Hollywood, the calls have slowed in. Britain, the coverage has cooled. The power couple narrative has been replaced by a much sadder 1-2 people chasing a spotlight that no longer wants them. And there's no clearer symbol that than Meghan's latest venture, as ever lifestyle brand filled with flowery product descriptions and overpriced items feels like a desperate attempt to stay in the game. But there's nothing new here, just recycled aesthetics, curated quotes, and a lot of. Influencer fluff critics have mocked it mercilessly, calling it a vanity project disguised as a business, and the numbers so far not promising. But it's not just about products, it's about purpose Meghan left the royal family in search of independence and control, freedom. But somewhere along the way, that freedom turned into isolation, not just from the palace, but from reality, from the people who once cheered her on, from the image she tried to build. The irony is almost poetic. Meghan walked away from one of the most powerful platforms in the world, claiming she wanted peace, privacy, and a new chapter. But she didn't write that chapter, she just rebranded the cover and hoped people would still read. And now, with each failed launch and fading headline, it becomes clearer. She's not leading a movement, she's writing the remnants of an old one. What remains is a woman with a royal past, a fractured public image, and a growing sense that the world has moved on the palace to press, and even her peers no longer revolve around her orbit. She chased global influence, but is now stuck in a loop of diminishing returns. It's not a tragedy. It's not even a controversy anymore. The slow, awkward fade out. Meghan Markle wanted to be iconic, but icons don't chase validation, they earn it.